Well, this one might have been easy to miss over the last 24 hours or so because nobody really made a big deal of it anywhere. But breaking news, folks. Everton are in a bit of a pickle. The Premier League have given them a 10-point deduction for being the first and only team ever to do anything financially dodgy in the Premier League. Man City. Chelsea. Oh, dear. Sorry, folks. I have a really terrible cough at the moment. But the points deduction is really just the tip of the iceberg for Everton, with the club also in almost £1 billion of debt and having not won a trophy since 1995's Charity Shield, which, considering only 3 teams have ever won the English top flight more than the Toffees, it's a pretty sorry state of affairs, and it's time somebody did something about it. Well, guess what, boys and girls? I'm somebody, and I am going to do something about it. But we're not just going to save Everton, we're going to get them back where they're supposed to be, fighting for the Premier League title. This is what Everton should do if they want to get out of this mess that they've gotten themselves into. Yeah, that's right, boys and girls. We are going to be doing our first multi-season rebuild all within this video, if we survive the first season, because as you can see, things aren't going so great. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a real results mod. I couldn't find one that's been set up for FM24 yet, but what I have got is real fixtures. I've holidayed through to today's date, and I have applied Everton's 10-point points deduction. I did this like 5 or 6 times to try and get one that actually had Everton in a similar kind of position to where they are in real life. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, 3 points rather than 4 points, but it's close enough, and it is tough because we take over as Everton manager with the club rock bottom of the Premier League, 5 points behind the next team up, Sheffield United, also 5 points from safety, because just like in real life, the 3 clubs that got got promoted, Burnley, Luton, Sheffield United, pathetic. So we've got to try and find a way to get ourselves out of this relegation zone. The media don't think we're going to do it. The media are expecting us to go down. The club have given me the good old attempt to avoid relegation, but, you know, you might not do it. So there is a chance, even if we don't manage to stay up, that I get to keep the job and bring them back up again and build from there. My plan for the video, we're going to do 5 years. We're only going to be doing the transfers and then holidaying through the matches, because obviously I can't play 5 years worth of matches for one video that came out less than 24 hours after this news broke. But we are going to do our very best to keep Everton in the Premier League and then hopefully return them to former glories. We're playing on the real world game mode, so all of the real transfers have taken place when they were supposed to take place, and we disabled transfers in the first transfer window as well. We also have the real Premier League fixtures, so we're as close to reality as we could get in the time that we had and in the circumstances that were available to us. So just like in real life, our next match is against Manchester United, and we're currently on an international break. Money-wise, despite the points deduction, we're on course to pass FFP and all of that kind of stuff. There is a little bit of money in the bank. There's a tiny amount of transfer budget, a little bit of extra wage budget. The projection doesn't look too clever, though. The club debt's not ideal, and in order for us to do any kind of transfers in January, we are going to have to sell before we can buy. But first we need to make it to January, so we need to figure out a system that we're going to play. I mean, I guess it would make sense to replicate Dyche ball. It seems to be working for Everton in real life, although obviously Dyche has been the Everton manager in this save up to this point, and they're rock bottom of the Premier League. So, although to be fair, without the 10 points point deduction, we would be in 12th place. So take it with a pinch of salt. This is probably a team that's capable of finishing in mid-table, but we do need to sort out our form, get these boys ready to start moving up the table. And Manchester United is quite a tough first match. In fact, it's quite a tough run of first matches before we get to that transfer window opening. We've got Manchester United, Newcastle, Chelsea and Spurs before we get into January. And then when we hit January, we've got Man City twice in 5 games and Spurs again. So, I mean, there's not an obvious spot there where the matches are nice, easy games for us to get some form together. So I think we just have to set ourselves up to hopefully get some points on the board between now and Christmas, and then see where we are in January. I'm going to meet you in the January transfer window, and we'll see what we can do then. Right, I've had a little bit of a play around. I think this is my plan. We've got the two big meaty slabs of meat up front, so the plan very much is get the ball to the big meaty boys and get them to score their goals. I think it's going to be very important that we make the most of set pieces, but really we are relying on Beto and Calvert-Lewin being fit and playing lots of games, which is it's a big thing to rely on for Calvert-Lewin, who of course injured and has missed all of this season so far, pretty much. So we need to get him fit, because without him, we don't really have a strike partner for Beto, which isn't ideal. It'll be fine. This is what we're going to do. It's a little bit different from what was being done before. I can see why Dyche wasn't playing two up top, because he didn't have Calvert-Lewin available. Hopefully, I will have him available. He's back in 4 days. This could be ideal timing for me to come into the club and look like I'm a genius, because we've got 8 days before our first match. So we've made it through to the start of the January transfer window, and it looks like aiming for the big meaty boys is definitely the way to go for this Everton team. It took us a little while to get up and running, a draw against Man United, a defeat against Forest, but once Calvert-Lewin was back in the team and fit, he got a couple of goals as we beat Newcastle. We put 5 past Chelsea, with Calvert-Lewin and Beto scoring 4 between them, 2 from Beto against Burnley, 2 from Calvert-Lewin against Spurs in a draw, and then more goals from the big meaty boys. I mean, Branthwaite definitely goes into the big meaty boy category as well at 6'5". It's big meaty boys everywhere, and that means as we hit January, we are out of the relegation zone. I've been to 17th place. Beto is one of the top scorers in the Premier League. And now we've got to get through the transfer window. And it looks like the board have given me a little bit of extra spensies, which I think they've misunderstood the assignment here, because we are very much trying to clear this debt whilst also returning Everton to former glories. So looking at who we might be able to sell to start generating some transfer money, there is interest in a few of our players. Not necessarily the ones who are going to get us a decent amount of money, though. And I mean, our most saleable assets are likely to be Calvert-Lewin, maybe Branthwaite. These are the guys who we're likely to be able to sell for big money at some point. Maybe Onana as well, possibly even Patterson. Is Danjuma joining permanently, or is he just here? He's just here on loan. So, I mean, they're probably the ones that we're going to be looking to sell at some point. There is interest in Calvert-Lewin from Spurs, because since coming back from his injury, he's got 8 goals in 10 games. He had 0 from 3 before we took over. So he's in great form, and considering his injury record, I am well up for cashing in now if we can get anywhere near this kind of value for him, and then bring in a replacement. So let's see what happens. We'll meet you at the other end of the transfer window. Form continued to be pretty good in January, although that result against Fulham leaves a little to be desired, but we are still in the FA Cup. We're now 5 points clear of the relegation zone as well, and I'll keep doing it, but if we hadn't had the points deduction, we'd be 10th now and looking at potential European qualification. Unfortunately, we did get the points deduction. Now, we have done quite a lot of business in January, though. Started making some efforts to clear out some of the players we're not going to want. A lot of young players have disappeared out of the club, but significantly, Michael Keane has gone to Salento on loan. Ben Godfrey has gone to Real Hespales, both of them with views to permanent moves, although they're not actually permanent moves built in. They've got future fees potentially in there. We've signed ourselves a backup goalkeeper. We've very much gone bargain hunting. So backup keeper Andre Lunin from Real Madrid for less than £1 million. We've also got a young right back who can also play centre back, Alejandro Francis, who comes in from Zaragoza. We've got this guy on loan from Atletico Madrid, who's really just come in to be a backup striker for us because nobody came in for Calvert-Lewin. So we actually gave him a contract extension. Marko Grujic has come in for some extra depth in midfield and joins us permanently in the summer. That's a loan with a future fee. Leonardo Lello signed for Arsenal for £4 million from Casapia earlier in the window, and then came in on loan to offer some competition at left back for us. We also got Luis Romo, another bargain buy, centre back, defensive midfielder. Just really needed a little bit of extra depth in those areas with Godfrey and and Keane both leaving the club. And then lastly, we decided to splurge with a couple of hours to go on deadline day. A youngster, Mohamed Belloumi, is a young winger because we like having young wingers, an inside forward on that right-hand side. We've brought him in to play as an inside forward and hopefully score some goals. Not that he's been doing that previously, but I think we can afford to have a little bit of a splurge on a young, exciting player. So the deals that are actually confirmed for summer now, it is just Grujic coming in. Hopefully we're able to get those two boys who've gone out on loan to go out permanently. Have we got any loan clauses we can sell? We can get about £1 million in from Newcastle for the Anthony Gordon deal. There's more money to come in from Spurs for Richarlison as well. So financially, we've got loads of budget left. We're trying to be sensible. We're within our wage budget. We are currently failing Champions League FFP. I'm not that concerned because we're not going to qualify for the Champions League and we're still within the Premier League FFP. So I'm not going to worry too much about Champions League FFP until we're actually ready to challenge for a Champions League spot, which is probably not going to be this year or next year. Right, let's see how we get on for the rest of the season with our very new look team, because if we have a look at what our best 11 is now, there are a few new faces in there. No new faces in the best 11. I've signed a lot of backup players. We had no strength in depth. Ignore the best 11 thing. What does the game know, eh? Kev knows. The game is nonsense. And there we have it. We have finished the season in 14th place. Would have been 11th if we hadn't had the points deduction. Most notably, though, this system certainly seems to be getting the best out of the two big meaty boys up front. I said this was the plan, and it very much is working. 22 goals for Calvert-Lewin in 29 appearances. His value has shot up after his new contract and all these goals, and he's wanted by Chelsea. And then Beto is, he's got 21 from 34, and he is wanted by loads of teams at our level. So I think in line with our financial issues, because we're actually more in debt now than we were when I arrived, which certainly wasn't part of the plan, we're probably going to have to sell Calvert-Lewin this summer. There is interest in a lot of our players, though. So I think this is going to be a big one. Is this our budget? I'm not sure if this is our new budget or not. I don't think we've had our new budget just yet. Let's hit continue a couple of times, see if we can get our new budget. I've just seen that Erik ten Hag's been sacked by Manchester United, but there is Calvert-Lewin being linked with Chelsea. I'm not against it happening because it would certainly help us financially. Oh, there's our budget. I've clicked continue too many times. So our budget is far too much money. This club does not know what's good for it. That is bonkers. But I guess we'll go and do the summer now. And if no one else at this club is, I am going to keep one eye on what's going on here, not here, here, and also down here as far as FFP is concerned, because I'd like to think at some point in the near future we'll be qualifying for the Champions League. I'd quite like to not be banned from it as and when that happens. So first proper window, first summer, let's go do a proper rebuild. Well, despite the fact we've had a net transfer spend, I think that might be one of the most restrained transfer windows I've ever done. We've sold a lot of fringe players, loaned them out, the likes of Keane, Godfrey, Morpay, Holgate. They've all moved on. Dwight McNeil forced through a move to Al Ittihad for £51 million, 40 up front, the rest on the never never. And James Garner's gone out on loan as well, and lots of, like I say, lots of other fringe players have gone for a total of £72 million, which does really help the wage budget. As you can see, our wage spend much lower than it was before. The players we've brought in to fill the squad back up again, we started off with Joseph Akumu, who is a centre-back who's come in from Reims for £16 million. We then brought in Sergio Camelo, who was here on loan last season. He's joined permanently for £16 million to be a backup striker for us. Another one of our loans confirmed, Marco Grujic, who was here last year and comes in permanently as well. Monteser Talbi is a centre-back, a 6'3" centre-back. We like him tall around here. He joins for £17 million. And then we've got McNeil's replacement, Gonzalo Guedes, who joins initially on loan from Wolves, but joins permanently next summer for £21 million. Destiny Udogie comes in on loan from Spurs, because in this universe, Spurs don't play him, so we'll certainly take him. And then the rest of our deadline day dealings, we got another winger in, Ramon Sosa, who's a Paraguayan international that we picked up for the bargain price of £6 million. Another winger from Wolves, Pedro Neto, who we've got for £27 million. He's had a great start to the season with Wolves down in the Championship. That's why we were able to double raid them. And then we've just brought in another midfield player, Salvatore Esposito, 23 years old, comes in from Spezia, who have just got promoted to Serie A, and he started the season at that level there. So that means our first 11 now, if we go and pick our best first 11, we've still got the two big meaty boys up front. We've got our two Wolves wingers, a new look central midfield, and a back four and goalkeeper that looks pretty much the same as it always did, despite us spending all that money on it. But I'm pretty happy with this squad. The media think that we are looking good for the mid-table finish that the board are looking for, and we've started the season exactly there, 11th place in the league. Everyone's pretty happy, although Jordan Pickford's lost all trust in me as his manager, so Pickford might be the next one on the chopping block. Strangely, he lost all trust in me after I turned down a transfer offer from Spurs for him, so I wonder if those two things were related. Let's see how we get on, shall we? Well, this definitely seems like it might be a theme in this save. We're doing very well on the pitch at the halfway point of the season. January transfer window, season 2 has just started. We're up in 7th place, so on course for European qualification, which is jolly nice. Beto and Calvert-Lewin both doing really, really well again. But the board have taken all the money away. Remember, we had loads of budget left over. They've taken it all away. They've also taken away more wage budget than we actually had, mainly because we are continuing to plunge further and further into debt. Despite me reducing the size of the transfer budget, the amount of loans this club has are just entirely unserviceable. I suspect we're going to have to sell some players this January, and I guess we start with the 4 players who were all unhappy at the club because they want to play more games. Ironically, 4 players that we signed within the last year. So these guys might be moving on. It's nice to see I'm getting some player support, though. These players who are demanding game time, the rest of the team are like, yeah, don't care. So it's not actually leading to a player mutiny, which is excellent, and we are in pretty good form. But if we can get rid of those 4 guys, we're going to generate a little bit of spending money at the least for January. We get 100% of our retained transfer revenue. We are on course for a tiny transfer budget of only £8 million next year, so we probably need to make the most of things now. And I suspect the time is coming where one of our strikers is going to have to leave. Beto is wanted by lots of clubs who can throw lots of money at him. Calvert-Lewin, not so much at the moment, but I suspect there's going to be some significant business this January again. Well, another very productive transfer window behind us. We shipped out all but one of the grumpy boys, and the only one we didn't ship out is the one we wanted to keep. We agreed a price of £53 million with him, and Arsenal backed away. So Beto is still here. Him aside, we managed to move out Romo, Dobbin, Taibi, Gruitch, and that's it. Just checking the list. So they've all gone out on loans or loans with permanent deals to come, or in the case of Romo, we got £12.5 million of him. So that's the kind of deal we need to be making here at Everton, bringing players in, not necessarily using them, but selling them for double the money in a year. That's good business. And with that money that we brought in, we were able to bring in Leopold Querfeld as a starting centre-back, as a defensive midfield player, basically as a big upgrade in 2 positions that needed upgrade. He's basically replaced the 3 first-teamers who left, which gave us a little bit of flexibility to do some other shenanigans. Giovanni Simeone came in when it looked like Beto was going to be leaving. We were able to get him on loan until the end of the season, and then he's got a permanent deal to join us for just £3 million in the coming summer. Brian Reynolds has come in as a new right back for us. We only had 1 before. Now we've got 3, because we also got Juanlu, who really has come in as a winger, but is also natural anywhere down that right-hand side. He comes in from Sevilla, and possibly the most important signing is the one that's coming in the summer. Tuin Koopmeiners is coming in on a free transfer at the end of his contract with Napoli, and he'll slot straight into our midfield when he arrives, and it will be a wonderful thing. On the pitch, not the best January we could have had. We narrowly missed out on a spot in the Carabao Cup final. We've also been knocked out of the FA Cup by Manchester United, but we are still exactly where we want to be. In the Premier League, we're looking good for a European qualification spot. Our strikers are scoring goals. Fingers crossed, come the end of the season, we're in Europe of some flavour. Well, that second half of the season went better than I ever could have hoped for. As you can see, there's not many defeats in there. Lots and lots of wins. Calvert-Lewin and Beto are just an absurd partnership. Everton, if they can keep the both of those fit, as far as I'm concerned, are on their way to the Champions League, because we're on our way to the Champions League. We've qualified for the European Cup proper for the first time. And I looked this up, as you can imagine, since 1971. There was a failed qualifying round match in 2005. But for the first time since 1971, Everton are in the European Cup. They are in the Champions League. These two finishing second and third on the top scorer charts again. You add the two of them together, they're more effective than Haaland. And we do play them both at the same time. So it is bonkers. They are just an incredibly good strike partnership. Branthwaite, you can tell how effective these set pieces are. Having a 6'5" defender, he's weighed in with 14 goals this season. Just got the 3 last year, but clearly growing into his body. Now he's our vice captain, and we also have Pedro Neto, Jordan Pickford, Michaelenko, all standing out as superstars for us as well. Obviously, the big clubs are circling, but now we've got Champions League, and more importantly, Champions League money. We've got a chance to actually keep some of these players, and we're going to need it because the financial situation continues to get worse. We are close to tipping over into £1 billion worth of debt. As you can see from the transfer debt, that's not increasing. I am not going nuts. I am not doing my usual. This is all happening around me. I'm not causing it to happen, but fingers crossed a season of Champions League money should start turning that in the right direction. If it wasn't for the money, I'd end this video here, because the goal was get Everton up into the Champions League, and that's exactly what's happened. But the club is currently financially insecure. They still want me to spend 50 million this summer. We are on course to pass FFP, but I really want to see the impact a season in the Champions League has on these finances. So we've got to survive one more summer of not losing all of our best players and hopefully strengthening the squad, because it is small, and there are players, well, there's player who wants to leave and go for a bigger club. Did any of those bigger clubs even qualify for the Champions League? He might be about to change his tune, but one more summer of transfers, one more season. Let's see if we can start moving the finances in the right direction, and obviously qualify for the Champions League again, because that then helps with the whole long-term money thing. There is also rumours of a potential takeover, which is absolutely a cop-out way out, but we'll take it. We'll take the takeover. We should be a tempting prospect now we're in Europe. Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham and Spurs all missing out. If any of their owners want to come in and save us, you know where to find us. Worth noting as well that as part of our first season back in Europe for, 44 years, we are moving into our new stadium this summer as well. So we've got to play a season at Bramley Moor Dock Stadium. So we move into our new big stadium, and it is going to host Champions League football in its first season. That should be a way to persuade the likes of Beto to stick around. And I realise I've said his name like 5 different times in this video already. I am going to try and come up with some more. Well, I'm going to call that another very successful summer. Ignore this. I'm still kind of behaving myself. And we are in the Champions League, so we've added £4 million to the transfer debt. But we're mostly just spending the money we're raising from selling players, and I think that's fine. So players that have gone: Alejandro Francis has gone to Sunderland. Another one we brought in, sold on a profit. We're flipping so many players. Very proud of myself. James Garner, £30 million to Southampton. Joseph Akumu, not quite as much of a flip on that one, but we still made a profit on a player that we weren't really using. Marco Grujic has gone out on loan again, but this time for a £5 million loan fee. We've actually made more just on his loan fees than we actually paid for him in the first place. So I'm going to call that a big thumbs up. Montasser Talbi, he's gone out on loan again, and hopefully will be going permanently. I think he might be one of the ones who's got a permanent deal lined up, actually. Chermiti, who I didn't sign. This guy was brought in before me. That's why he's been sold on for very little money, because he's not very good. And also Brian Reynolds, who asked to leave because he wasn't getting enough football. Another one we've made a slight profit on. And then that money has been reinvested. We've got Nehuan Perez, a centre-back, Argentinian international. He's come in from Udinese. We have also brought in Meri Demiral, formerly, of course, of Juventus and various others. Most recently off in Saudi Arabia. Got him on a very cut price deal on a low salary as well for a man coming back from Saudi Arabia. Of course, we already know about Coop Miners coming in. He's now new vice captain, and Giovanni Simeone joining permanently, as did Gonzalo Guedes. Amar Dedic is our new left back, also able to cover at right back, just kind of covers both sides. Antonio Nusa, wonder kid winger who can cover either wing, comes in from Club Bruges. Yukinari Sugawara is our replacement for Reynolds, and also Juanlu, who's another one who we loaned out, having brought in back in January, and he didn't really get in the team. And then lastly, deadline day signing Andre, just to give us another option in defensive midfield. We've started the season pretty well. First defeat at the new stadium against Manchester United, but since then we've beaten Newcastle and Fulham away from home, so we're 6th in the league. The media think we're looking at an 8th place finish. Obviously we want to qualify from the Champions League again, because if we can go deep in it this year and then qualify for it again next year, we will go a long way to starting to finally reduce some of this debt, which of course will now start being paid off by higher attendances as well. Now we've moved into the new stadium. So let's go. In fact, before we go and see how we're getting on, let's just have a quick look what the game thinks our best team is now. I mean, that's a pretty good side, isn't it, really? That is a pretty good football team. Let's go and see how they get on. Well, the first half of the season has gone very well. There we are. Look, sat in 4th place again, where we finished last year. I mean, if we're able to push on the way we did in the second half of last season, who knows? We could go and win the league. We're probably not going to go and win the league, but there is a big gap between us and Liverpool, a gap that was just extended in our most recent match where we beat them 2-1 at our big, shiny new house. Goals-wise, it is still the Beto and Calvert-Lewin show, and there have been a few injuries scattered around the squad, as you can see. And of course, we have been playing in the Champions League as well, where with 2 games to go in this silly new futuristic league stage, we're looking okay. We've got we're 2 points clear of 25th place Borussia Dortmund. If you're not familiar with the new style Champions League, the way it works, the top 8 go through to the quarterfinal straight away. If you finish between 9th and 24th, you have to play an extra round before them, and then you're rewarded with, it must be the last 16, not the quarterfinal actually, because the winners of these matches then go on to, so basically you play one fewer match if you finish in the top 8. We're probably not going to finish top 8. We're 2 points outside of that, and we still have to play Paris Saint-Germain and Feyenoord. So it's pretty unlikely that we're going to end up top 8, but fingers crossed, if we can pull off a result against Feyenoord, we should be able to qualify for the knockout rounds, which already puts us well ahead of schedule. The board were just looking for us to get into the league stage, which we qualified for last season. And of course, just looking for us to finish in the top half of the Premier League, and we're looking good there as well. We do have the usual collection of players who want to leave the club because they're not starting their football matches. So we're going to have another active January. And once again, just like last year, the board have taken all of my money off me going into January as well. So we're going to have to sell before we can buy, but we managed to do it last year. And transfer debt's coming down, even though main debt for the club is still increasing. Is that Champions League money not making any difference at all? Well, let's just make sure we get in it again then, I guess. And this, boys and girls, is a team that is going to have no problems getting back in the Champions League. You'll notice there are a couple of new faces scattered around the place. If we have a look at the transfers once again, we've got rid of the majority of the grumpy gooses. Some of them, actually, we've not been able to get rid of. So Sugawara, who wants to start more games, isn't really kicking up a fuss about it. So no one really wanted to pay good money for him. So no reason to ship him out. Likewise, Onana, who you'll see I have signed 2 replacements for, and then we weren't able to get rid of him. Ramon Sosa should be leaving. The window has closed, but he will still be able to complete his move to Al Ali, I think, after the window is done. So he should be on his way out of the door as well. But the transfers we have made, the ones that have departed, Nehuan Perez has gone to Valencia on loan with a view to a permanent move. I'll confirm in a second the ones that have... there you go. We've got the upcoming... In fact, is that right? I thought he had a future fee on. Maybe he doesn't. It must be an optional future fee on all of the loans. I thought a couple of them were going permanently, but I guess they're not. Right, where are we on here? Lunin has gone to Al Arabi for £3 million because he was unhappy at not getting any game time. Andre has gone back to Brazil on loan for a massive loan fee. £5.75 million to loan him is almost half what we paid for him back in the summer. We can do plenty more loans like that. This one was a bit upsetting. Salvatore Esposito, Paris Saint-Germain did his release clause. We had to do a release clause when we brought him in, weren't really on top of it with contract renewals and things. So he was actually someone who was starting regularly for us, who has gone. That's probably the first player we've lost that I didn't really want to lose. Talby has gone on loan back on loan to Nice. We brought him back to try and sell him. We couldn't sell him, so we then sent him back to Nice again. And just on deadline day just now, Sergio Camelo, our 4th choice striker, has gone to Fulham, another one sold on at a profit. So with that money, the players that have come in, Dennis Simon has come in to be, I mean, realistically, we were looking for a backup keeper, but I actually think Simon has got a very good chance of being our starting keeper over the top of Jordan Pickford, who is one of the players who wants to leave. It's a little bit of a shame we didn't get a big money offer for Pickford during January, because I think with Simon in, we could have quite happily cashed in on Pickford for 50 or 60 million. Whether we'll still get that kind of offer in the summer after he's not played as much remains to be seen. Nino is in as another starting option at centre-back. He comes in for £11 million from Brazil. Quentin Timber is in as one of the new defensive midfielders. He joins for £39 million from Feyenoord, and the other defensive midfielder we brought in, Mandela Keita, who joins us for £34 million from Antwerp. So just as a reminder, that's our new starting 11. Our bench is looking pretty strong as well. And results-wise in January, things are looking pretty good. Premier League, we're currently sat in 4th place, 9 points clear of course, our city rivals, Liverpool. We're still in the FA Cup after a dominant win over Grimsby, and we did make it through to the knockout rounds of the Champions League thanks to a massive win over Feyenoord. We got thumped by Paris Saint-Germain 4-0, but then we absolutely battered Feyenoord, the big meaty boys up top, again doing their thing. So let's go qualify for the Champions League again, because goodness me, could we need the money? We're over £1 billion in debt now. I'll keep emphasising it's not me doing it. It is the club. And actually looking at it, some of this is debt we can't do anything about anyway. 381 million is a chairman loan. So if we do ever get the takeover, that gets cleared as part of it. I guess the incoming chairperson would have to clear that. The £350 million bank loan was to build the stadium and is repayable over the next 15 years. We don't really need to worry about that. This one has got more than 30 years left to pay it back. So although that's a big number, it's actually kind of a manageable number. That's not ideal, but being in the Champions League consistently will fix that. And we're within those budgets. And that's the most important thing. We must make sure we get back in the Champions League again. And we have. There is your confirmation of our 4th place finish in the Premier League. And it's not the only time this season we got one over on Liverpool, finishing above them to get that Champions League spot. They're probably going to get one as well. I think we get the 5th one through coefficient things, but the finals of all the tournaments have to be played before that's decided. So Liverpool probably going to be back in the Champions League again. And maybe they'll have all the fun of being knocked out by us again, because we faced Liverpool in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. We were 3-2 up from the first leg at Anfield. We went to Anfield and were 3-0 up after 70 minutes. They looked like they were dragging themselves back into the game, but then, I mean, this new stadium is already having some European nights. A 4 4 draw after extra time. A 93rd minute equaliser from Liverpool after we'd gone ahead in the 90th minute. Calvert-Lewin scores in the 105th and the 112th. Liverpool equalise in the, or don't equalise, equalise on the night in the 116th minute, but it's not enough. Those 2 Calvert-Lewin goals leading to the full-on Calvert-Lewin hat-trick is enough to get us into the semi-final, where unfortunately we faced Barcelona, and as good as we are, we're still only a top 4 Premier League team. And as we showed when we got battered by Paris Saint-Germain, when we come up against the real European elite, we do get absolutely thumped. We probably shouldn't be going 4-2-4, attacking, high pressing away at the new camp, because that's what happens. But we made it to the semi-final, which, I mean, you've got to admit, that's a very good result. We've got back in the Champions League again. Beto is phenomenal. 36 goals from this year, another 28 for Calvert-Lewin. Simeone, special shout out for him, who's just basically off the bench, weighed in with 14 goals. And new boy Antonio Nusa, still only 21, has had a really, really good first season. Branthwaite weighing in with lots of goals again, and the future is just very bright here at Everton. If we look now at what our best 11 is, Dennis Simon very much a part of it, but it's a young, good team. Yes, financially not ideal. That's certainly not ideal, but the board are obviously confident about long term because they've given us more wage budget and more transfer budget again. We've got back under £1 billion worth of debt. The transfer debt's coming down again. That's still terrifying, but not as terrifying as it was, because we're back in the Champions League again. We're getting 50,000 people through the gates regularly in our home matches, and I think we are slowly but surely clawing away at the financial problems. But the important thing is we've not had another points deduction. We're about to have our second season in the Champions League that we got to the semi-final of last year, and we're starting to assemble a very good, young, talented squad. The likes of Koopmeiners, Branthwaite, Neto, Simon. I mean, these are all young but I mean, Koopmeiners is 28, but the majority of this squad is young. Obviously, this team long term is going to have to replace Calvert-Lewin and Beto, who are 28 and 29, and obviously absolutely crucial. So at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, the big job is going to be replacing those 2 boys who've been so important to this 3-year run. But ultimately, we got to be pretty happy with that. I think Everton fans wouldn't mind the resolution to the 10 points deduction being 2 seasons in the Champions League and beating Liverpool in the quarter-final. I think that would probably do. So I am pretty confident saying this is what Everton should do to get out of the mess that they've got themselves into. And if you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on the video for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.